Journal entry added. The Sword of Ajunta Pall. You've encountered none other than the restless and regret-filled spirit of the ancient Sith Lord Ajunta Pall within his tomb. He has entreated you to find out which of the 3 swords buried in his sarcophagus is actually his, and to place it on the statue within this chamber. He has left you with this clue. I am that which grips the heart in fright, hearkens night, and silences the light. Well then. Let us inspect these swords and see which fits the bill most. Silver-lined sword. Weapon proficiency, melee weapons, damage physical 1 to 12, critical threat 20 to 20 times 2. This blade is long and straight and sparkles with a silver glow that becomes brighter as the hilt is touched. It is quite warm, and it almost appears that the blade becomes white hot once it is equipped. Such a fiery weapon would be devastating against an unarmored opponent. A small insignia of a flame is impressed upon the hilt. We have a vibro sword that is quite different from other vibro swords we've gotten before. Damage physical 2 to 12, weapon proficiency melee weapons. Critical threat 19 to 20 times 2. Like most vibroblades, this weapon lets off a dim humming sound once activated. Its length shimmers with a deep blue-colored force field, and its hilt is the black of charcoal. A single insignia upon the hilt shows that of a red, baleful eye. Lastly, we have a notched steel sword. Weapon proficiency melee weapons, damage physical 2 to 12, critical threat 20 to 20 times 2. The blade of this sword is an ebony black and notched along its length to give it a cruel and jagged appearance. There is a strange visual effect upon the sword which makes it seem as if shadows pulse and ebb along its surface. It is very cool to the touch, and upon close inspection a small insignia of a dark circle can be spotted on its hilt. So the one that grips me with the most fright would probably be this one, since this sword is all black. It has a chill to it. This one would be the next closest, and lastly I would say the silver-lined sword. So let's go. See if we wither and die into a skeleton screaming like in Indiana Jones. Place the sword in the statue. The notched steel sword. The sword sets itself in the stone as if it belongs there. Items lost. I think we received a journal entry for that. Or was it? The Sword of Ajunta Pall. Did we gain a sword, or did we gain another item for that? I'm confused. Looks like we lost it, so maybe we have to talk with Paul again. Unless it went down at the bottom here somewhere. But it doesn't look like it. Let's see.
Yes, that is the one. That is the blade that destroyed me. Take it. Take it and the other blades even. Take them and go. My darkness awaits me.
I want to know more about the star map.
Our oldest secret is buried, but not here. I remember nothing else. I cannot help you.
There's no need to remain here, is there?
No need? What choice have I?
You can return to the light side and end your torment.
Return? But I betrayed my old masters. They would never let me return to the light side. It is too late. Too late.
I don't believe the light side would turn you away. You've suffered long enough.
If I could return... Oh, my master, it has been so long, and I regret so much.
Be at peace, Ajunta. Well, I think if anything Telemachus can say he's proud of, he'd be proud most of being able to redeem Ajunta Pall. It's quite an accomplishment for his resume. Let's see. The Sword of Ajunta Pall. You were able to select the sword that once belonged to the Sith Lord Ajunta Pall, and his spirit was grateful that the weapon would at last leave his side. The weapon is certainly an impressive one, but it might also serve as a relic that would impress Master Uthar. Telemachus is not going to give Ajunta Pall's blade to Master Uthar. It is far too precious an artifact to ever allow to fall into the Sith's hands again. It would serve as a rallying call, I would say, to Malak's Sith Empire, so he would much rather it be kept in his own hands. Not least of all that he actually is very interested in ancient Sith artifacts anyway, but he doesn't want an artifact lending legitimacy to the current Sith regime. That would not serve the Republic's interests at all. But what we have here, weapon proficiency melee weapons, and it requires Jedi defense to use this, so you have to be a Jedi. This item, along with all of the other items in each of the tombs, has been souped up a bit, to put it bluntly. The base stats for these weapons were not what they should be, given who their prior bearers were. They were pretty weak, all things considered, so a mod that I installed kind of fixed them up a bit, and I actually played around with the stats myself to give these a bit more oomph. So damage physical 4 to 24, bonus cold damage 2 to 12, and 2 to 12 fire damage as well. It's a really good item. Critical threat 19 to 20 times 2, plus 2 to 12. On hit, causes fear, 100% chance, 12 seconds, DC 100 to beat it. Attack modifier plus 5, restricted to dark side. Bonus feat, 2-weapon fighting, improved 2-weapon fighting, master 2-weapon fighting. Weapon focus melee weapons. Weapon focus, or weapon specialization melee weapons. Held by the Dark Jedi even before he fell to the dark side. This may be one of the few truly personal items owned by Ajunta Pall, and remains as thoroughly corrupted as he. Which, interestingly enough, is not true anymore, because Ajunta Pall has been redeemed. He is no longer corrupt. So, perhaps the sword will lose its curse as well over time. But until that time, it is going to stay in our hands. Happily. Let's get out of this horrible place now. I did loot that corpse already. I hope. Yes. Okay, good. And nothing left in the sarcophagus. No. We may leave. Oh, Jahani and Bastila have leveled up. That's cool.
Yes?
Let's level them. Skills. Let's see. Well, she's doing computer use, so we might as well keep going with that. Feats. For Bastila's feats, I think we're probably going to upgrade her flurry again. Yeah. Do that. And then for powers, Force Wave would be nice. However, Master Valor would also be great, because she's actually using that quite a bit. I don't know. Increases all attribute points by 5. That's really good. Don't know how many more powers we're going to get to level up with her, but at least enough for these two, maybe. Let's... Actually, I think I'm going to give her an offensive power because I think Jolie already has Valor, so I'm going to give her Force Wave. That'll work. And then Jahani, level up. Skills. We were probably doing stealth, I would think. Or awareness and treat injury? I guess that'll work. Feats. Jahani has not as many as most of the others. I think I'm going to unlock her final level of lightsaber specialization. For powers, she needs probably the last batch of Master Speed, I think. Next we'll do Force Wave on her and maybe Stasis Field to finish off. There we go. How far am I away from leveling? I need about another 4,000 XP. Let's get out of here. Oh, that Chirac falling from the ceiling kind of scared me there.
I saw you come in here, and I rather
Sure
figured you'd make it all the way to the sarcophagus. Good to see I wasn't wrong.
Chardin. What do you want?
Isn't it obvious? I've been hoping that someone would do the dirty work in retrieving the sword of Ajunta Pall for some time. It's been quite a wait. Now that you have it, I just thought I'd relieve you of it. It must be quite a burden after all.
No, I think I'll manage with it just fine. Kind of you to offer, though.
Oh, but I insist. I'm not about to let a chance to impress Master Uthar pass me by. I may like you well enough, but being a Sith is all about taking chances when the moment is right. So make it easier on both of us. Hand over the sword.
I just want to point out that this guy has come here 1v3, and he thinks he's going to extort us. Well, we're going to allow him to do that. We'll see what happens. And if I don't...
Isn't it obvious? You die. Rule of the Sith. Only the strong and cunning shall survive. You won't be missed, trust me. Now hand it over.
Well, when you put it that way, how could I refuse? Just let me get it out.
Fine. No tricks, though. I'm watching you. See? I knew you and I could work this out. I imagine I'll be rewarded well for this. You'll do fine, I'm sure. Another time.
The Sword of Ajunta Pall. On the way out of Ajunta Pall's tomb, you encountered one of your rivals, Chardin. The Sith hopeful was actually dumb enough to take one of the spirit's false blades without closer examination. As for the real blade, that can probably be turned into Master Uthar as well, unless you wish to keep it. Nope. I think we're just going to see the fruits of our labor come about. I'm sure Ajunta Pall would be proud of our deception, had he still been on the dark side. His history, incidentally, is a pretty interesting one. He came to Korriban along with the other Dark Jedi exiles during a period in time known as the Second Great Schism. It took place about 3,000 years before this game's timeline. And the following period was called the 100-Year Darkness, basically the foundation of the Sith as we know them. Ajunta Pall and his cohorts came to Korriban and subjugated the native Sith species and enslaved them, more or less. And that's why, to this day, the title is called Dark Lord of the Sith, not Sith Lord, per se. The highest of the high is the Dark Lord of the Sith, as to note that he's the ruler over the Sith species, which would be the slave caste. Over time, Ajunta obviously fought amongst his rivals, and who knows, maybe stole those 2 other blades from his competitors. But the Sith themselves intermixed with the Dark Jedi, and this is one thing that the Old Republic MMO gets absolutely wrong about the Sith. On Korriban in that game, when you start playing the game, you kind of get this how to put it. The Sith in that game are very big on bloodlines for some reason, and they've got it completely backwards, where they seem to revere the idea that if you had more Sith blood in you, you had higher prestige and you could move through the ranks of that Sith Empire more easily, and that Sith Empire was supposed to be based on this. It was actually the other way around. The ones who were revered were the Dark Jedi. They were the noble caste in Sith society, so the more human blood that a Sith had, or the more other blood, I suppose, any of the other species that might have came here, but specifically or particularly human, was revered, because that would mean you had bloodlines descending from the original Dark Jedi, from Ajunta Pall and Tulak Hord and whoever else. Incidentally, that's where we're heading next, is to Tulak Hord's tomb. We don't really know when he came about in the Sith timeline. All that we know is from a snippet that's from KotOR 2. When you come to Korriban in that game, one of your party members will remark that Tulak Hord was one of the greatest lightsaber duelists of all time, and the greatest of his time, at least. And not much else is really known about him. He might have been a rival to Paul, he might have come sometime after, but it's kind of a bit of an anachronism, because, as we saw with Ajunta Pall, the Sith during this period in galactic history preferred melee weapons. They didn't prefer lightsabers, so he was a bit of a bellwether. He set the trend of the Sith beginning to move over to lightsabers, even though the Sith Lords that came after him still largely stuck to melee weapons. It took a long time. It took really until Exar Kun came about for the Sith to really adopt lightsabers as their main weapon. Jedi were a bit quicker to the draw than that. But the whole reason for Ajunta Pall and perhaps Tulak Hord coming here, as Tulak had mentioned, or as Ajunta had mentioned, they were discovered, or did they act? They don't know. We don't know. But something came about that the original Dark Jedi, when they were still members of the original Jedi Order, they either turned on their masters, or their masters discovered them and turned on them and drove them off. They lost the war, and they were exiled, and they fled to Korriban, eventually coming here anyway, after a period of time. Back then it wasn't actually forbidden for Jedi to practice the dark side. It was frowned upon. It was not something that the Jedi were promoting, but there were elements within the original Jedi Order that dabbled in the dark side. So it was only after the 100-Year Darkness that the dark side became forbidden to the Jedi Order.
Sorry, I'm rather busy with the excavation planning right now.
Indeed.
Sorry, I can't talk. We have to excavate this valley with hand instruments. There's all kinds of old traps left behind that still work.
Researched these, I know.
Sorry, I'm rather busy with the excavation planning right now.
Mac would really like to get his hands in here and waste a couple of weeks helping the Sith excavate, because you never know what you might find. This would be a fascinating place to dig. He's quite interested in archaeology, so... But, here's our darling Lashowe. Let's have a talk
There
with her.
you are, finally. If you were any later in showing up, we would have had to abandon this. I've been calling to the Takata mother in their language. She should respond fairly... Ah, here she comes now. Get ready. This will not be easy. She's a tough beast.
I think we're gonna be fine, just fine. Why don't we use Force Lightning upon these creatures? Well, one of them got hit. Let's... There's the Queen. Take out her.
Wonderful!
Well then.
The beast is dead. We work better together than I would have hoped. And here is the holocron. Such a small thing to be so valuable and require so much effort to obtain. I'll just run along now and give this to Master Uthar. I'll be sure to tell him of your contribution, naturally.
And how can I be sure of that?
You're the one that convinced me to go through with this plan. Why wouldn't I see it through?
I want some kind of guarantee.
Forget it. There is no guarantee. You helped me, I'll help you. Or don't you trust me?
How about this? We'll go to Master Uthar together.
Forget it. I'm not waiting up for you. That wasn't our plan anyway.
No more arguing. We'll take it back together.
Over my dead body.
If you insist. She's got good saving throws here. Can't believe she... Hello. Johnny, you want to, like, disengage all that and then heal us, please? Mac, you do the same.
Yes?
She's tough. Not sure why she's not dying. That is weird. Johnny, give us a heal, please. Sure. You know what? Back up a second. Back up a second. Let's leap over to Lashowe and see what the hell's going on. She's not dying. That's bizarre. That's gotta be a bug. That's so weird.
For the Republic!
I hope I have an autosave. This shouldn't be happening. She should be going down easier than this. Okay, you know what? Let me look here. We have a quick save. I have an autosave. Okay. We're gonna load that. Alright, so I went back and did some testing, and it turns out it actually was a bug, and not just any bug, it was a bug that was introduced by one of the mods that I have installed. Luckily, I did a little bit of searching online, and it turns out other people were having the same problem, and someone had made a custom script to fix just this situation. So I went back and tested that, and it's all good to go. She should be fixed now. It's actually a stroke of luck that we had to do all this, because I forgot to talk to Galen Lore before we left.
You have the sword. The sword of Ajunta Pall. That's it, isn't it? How did you ever acquire it?
I got it from Ajunta himself, if you must know.
Are you joking with me? The Sith Lord still lives?
Well, not exactly, no.
Oh, well, that is quite interesting. My mentor told me that Sith apparitions might be possible, but I never truly believed it. Well, thank you for the information. I must go and inform my mentor at once of this strange news.
You're very welcome. One of the only Sith who wasn't a complete dick to us the whole game. Anyway, let's head down and see Lashowe. Again.
There you are, finally. If you were any later in showing up, we would have had to abandon this. I've been calling to the Takata mother in their language. She should respond fairly... Ah, here she comes now. Get ready. This will not be easy. She's a tough beast.
Alright, now, let us disengage that. Let's go after this one. And that one. Bastila, why don't you, no, I want you to do a Night Valor on us.
What can I do?
Handle these.
For the Sith! The Force fights with me!
And the last one.
Wonderful!
Excellent.
The beast is dead. We work better together than I would have hoped. And here is the holocron. Such a small thing to be so valuable and require so much effort to obtain. I'll just run along now and give this to Master Uthar. I'll be sure to tell him of your contribution, naturally.
Hold on just a minute. And how can I be sure of that?
You're the one that convinced me to go through with this plan. Why wouldn't I see it through?
I want some kind of guarantee that you're actually going to speak up for me in this little engagement.
Forget it. There is no guarantee. You helped me, I'll help you. Or don't you trust me?
Why don't we go see Master Uthar together instead?
Forget it. I'm not waiting up for you. That wasn't our plan anyway.
No more arguing. We'll take it back together.
Over my dead body.
If you insist. Let's try this once again, from the top, with feeling. Much better. Why don't you just, get choked?
Sith!
Now. Journal entry added. Experience points received 1,000. That is the end of Lashowe. May we never have to deal with her nonsense again. Check the remains for 150 credits, a Verpine headband, and the holocron. Okay. We got a journal entry for this. Aiding Lashowe. You and your hopeful rival Lashowe worked together to defeat a Takata Mother beast and recover an ancient but corrupt Jedi holocron. Lashowe was insistent on returning the holocron to Master Uthar by herself, however, and the two of you battled. Lashowe was killed, but you now have the holocron for yourself. Yeah, no way to save her, I'm afraid, from her own ambition. So, it's the way it goes. Let's check out that holocron. We also have another Verpine headband. Hooray. Holocron, holocron. Probably be down towards the bottom. Holocron. This small crystal supposedly holds holographic recordings of the ancient Sith. Information which could be incredibly valuable. There's no telling how long the holocron has been lost in the area, nor how well it works. Definitely another item that Telemachus is not going to allow to fall into the hands of Master Uthar. Whatever's on that thing is going to be far too valuable. Ancient Sith lore is not something anyone shares lightly, so he's going to keep it, hoard it, as he usually does. We'll come up with some other ways to get some prestige. Incidentally, if you guys run into this bug with Lashowe, just search for Invincible Lashowe on Google and you should come up with a few threads, some Steam threads as well. That should link to the correct script file, which is an NCS file that you'll need to download. Should be pretty easy to find. A lot of the links are dead, but I found one that was still working, and it worked pretty okay, so seems to have fixed itself. However, I actually had to re-record this fix twice because, interestingly enough, when I was fighting here the first time, or well, it would have been the second time, this was the third time, Bastila had used Force Wave and it sent one of the Tucata hounds flying into the background here, and once it landed, a giant force cage appeared around it, like the thing that Bastila was being held captive in on Terrace, and I was like, what the hell? It was dead, but there was a cage surrounding it, and I hope that doesn't happen anywhere else. I hope that, I don't know, it might have been a bug in the script or something. It didn't happen this time because she didn't use Force Wave. I don't know whether that was just a complete fluke, but it was very weird. And I had to redo the sequence again, all over again. What a view.